Welcome to today's AutoInstruct video on how to remove the front sway bar from your V6, VE or VF Commodore. Now I say V6 because of the fact that the engine is a lot shorter than a V8. You can actually do this without disconnecting the end tie rods as per the repair manual. In the repair manual it states you need to disconnect both tie rods, but for the V6s you don't need to do that. For the V8s though, unfortunately you probably will have to, as there's simply no room in the engine bay. Let's get to it. Now to do this you need to make some room in the engine bay, and as a result you need to disconnect the air pipe here, stock or aftermarket. Probably take the engine cover off as well, and if fitted, remove this fascia panel. Now the next step is to disconnect the end link from the sway bar. You'll note my sway bar is blue because it's aftermarket, but the same method applies. So to this you need a 14mm over the nut and a 7mm holding the centre, which is essentially the bolt. Which will come off like so. And just pull it out of the bar and put it to the side and out of the way. Now do this for the other side and we'll move on to the next step. The next step is to remove the saddle from the D-link bushing. And to do that you need to remove this nut here, and there's another nut on the other side. Take off the saddle for both the passenger and driver side, and slide the D bushings off as well, which is this rubber piece here. There's a cut in the rubber piece, so you should actually be able to pull it off. Now for this particular guide, I also recommend disconnecting this bolt. And this simply removes this black bracket from this line and it allows you to move it out of the way, which helps removal of the sway bar when we get to that point later on. As you can see, I've removed the saddle from the sway bar, a D bushing which simply slid off, and what it leaves behind is two studs sticking out of the chassis, and this side-to-side retainer on the aftermarket sway bar. Now this stock sway bar doesn't have these retainers, but you might find them on some aftermarket sway bars. So the next step is to get the sway bar out of the vehicle now that it's no longer connected, and we'll show you how to do that now. Now for the next step you'll need to get the sway bar out of the vehicle, and this part is not simple. So the way that I found that this works is to slide the sway bar towards the driver's side of the vehicle. So get the curved end piece through into the engine bay in here, so half of the sway bar is essentially sticking out that side of the car. And then you need to twist it and pull it up through this way out of the engine bay. Now this will probably take you about 10 minutes to work out how this is done. It's essentially lots of twisting and turning and pulling and finding the correct way to come out of the vehicle. Now I've come to a point where the sway bar was catching on that air conditioning line I was talking about before, which is that single bolt on the left hand side. So I've just undone that, which you'll notice will get in the way. I can push that line out of the way now and then slide the sway bar past and around it. Now looking to the engine bay, you can now see that the passenger side, so the left hand side sway bar, left hand side of the sway bar is now in the engine bay. And I have actually removed the air compressor line, which is down here. So I could easily move it around this sway bar. So you need to definitely undo that one. And now you note that angle. And under here, the sway bar is sticking out on an odd angle straight over there below the wheel. And then towards the end, when you're getting the tail out, you're going to do one big twist to pivot the end piece through. Then out it comes. So yeah, it's completely doable without actually disconnecting the tie rods for the V6 models, but you need to be really patient with plenty of twisting and turning and pulling, and just being careful not to smash into other components, but it will eventually come out. So I've just put the sway bar back in now, the stock one. So like I said, into the driver's side and pull it across to the passenger side just like you took it out. And you won't have an issue. The hardest part is getting the very end where the end link ties into past the steering arms. That's by far the hardest part, but it's a lot easier when you've got a few people helping because I can tell you where it needs to move, but it's simple to do by yourself as well, as I just did it. The stock sway bars are also usually thinner than aftermarket ones in terms of diameter, so they're easier to get in and out. The aftermarket ones can be a little bit harder, but the Super Pro one that I took out before, the blue one, is 27mm, and I'll still be able to do it this way. So this trick does usually work all the time. You just need a bit of patience to do it. So now I'll slide the D bushings on, which are floating around somewhere. Here they are. So the D bushings go on just like you took them off. They open up like so, and you slide them over the frame, over the sway bar, sorry. And then put the saddles on top and screw them down to probably 20-25 Newton meters. And it's barely hand tight. All they're doing is holding the saddle down and not really dealing with much pressure. And like I said, be very, very careful when you tighten them down not to cross thread them, otherwise you risk snapping the stud out of the frame. So here we are back in the engine bay with the stock sway bar back in. And so we've put the dead bushing on, put the saddle back on, and done up these two nuts to around 20 or 25 Newton meters of torque. And we've also put this bracket back on down here. Now with these two nuts that go into the saddle, do them barely hand tight. If you do them too tight and you go nuts on them, you have a risk of snapping that stud that's coming out of the K-frame. So you have a risk of snapping this stud just coming out of this K-frame, and then you're going to have quite a big problem as it's really hard to fix. So do them hand tight, and I've done that on both sides as well. One's down here behind the radiator hose. It's a bit hard to see, it's down there. So they're both done up now. And the next step is to do up the end links. So looking back under the vehicle now, I've already reinserted the end link into the sway bar and done up the rear nut here. Again, to do up this nut just like you undid it, you'll probably need to hold the center with a 7mm bit, then do up the nut with a 14mm spanner or an open-ended socket set, so you can hold that and do up the nut. The book rates these to be tightened up to 50 Newton meters. And I suggest you do that, otherwise there is coming loose and you'll get this rattling sound as the sway bar wobbles from left to right. So I've done that on both sides now. So now the next step is to reinstall all the intake assembly, put the engine cover back on, lower the vehicle, and we're finished. Now that the intake assembly is back on the vehicle, the job's completed. Thanks for watching today's video on how to remove and reinstall the sway bar on a V6 or VF V6 Commodore. For more guides, head over to AutoInstruct.com.au. Thanks for watching.